Hello, my name is Stefanie Haslauer. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this conversation on EAP and the academy in the age of generative AI. Imagine a student opening an AI tool in front of a blank document. Seconds later, a structured paragraph appears. It sounds academic and looks competent. But what happened to judgment, ownership, and learning? That is my starting point. AI literacy is necessary, but it's not enough. This leads directly to the wider question on the next slide. If academic writing is already AI mediated, what kind of transitions are we designing around it? Students use AI to brainstorm, translate, summarize, simplify readings, create outlines, improve grammar, and rehearse arguments. This can help. For multilingual students, it may lower a first language barrier. For overwhelmed students, it may create a starting point. But a student can also move from confusion to fluent text without enough thinking in between. If universities only see the final product, they may not know whether the student developed capability or only received support. Adoption is not arrival. AI use is not yet learning. So the question becomes, what must universities design so that AI-mediated writing still leads to human capability? My argument has some steps. AI literacy is necessary but not sufficient. Curriculum change is ecosystem change. Generative AI affects teaching, assessment, and professional skills. Academic writing is not only text production, and transition architecture can help institutions design the movement from AI use to recognized human capability. The practical question is simple. How can universities allow responsible AI support without losing sight of the student's own thinking? This is especially important for EAP because EAP works where language, academic identify, confidence, evidence, and participation meet. I will start with AI literacy because it is necessary, but it cannot carry the whole educational responsibility alone. AI literacy is becoming an institutional responsibility. Students and staff need to understand hallucination, bias, data protection, authorship, disclosure, and over-reliance. The EU AI Act also makes AI literacy an explicit responsibility for providers and deployers of AI systems. So yes, AI literacy matters, but literacy alone does not guarantee judgment. A student may know that AI can hallucinate and still not know how to judge a source. A student may know that AI use should be disclosed and still not know where their own argument begins. So AI literacy is a starting point, not the full educational design. That is why the next step is to look beyond individual literacy and into the ecosystem that has to carry the change. The OECD's ecosystem approach to curriculum change is useful here. Curricular reform does not become real because a policy changes. It becomes real when the ecosystem can carry it. Teachers, students, assessment, resources, routines, governance, trust, and everyday practice. Imagine a university says AI may be used for brainstorming, but not for assessed writing. That sounds clear, but students ask, what counts as brainstorming? Teachers ask, how do I assess this fairly? Language tutors ask, what about translation? Suddenly, one policy sentence becomes an ecosystem question. And when that ecosystem is not redesigned, a transition gap opens. This is where the transition gap appears. Institutions may update policy language faster than they redesign the learning environment. Students may become conscious but not capable. Teachers may become responsible but unsupported. Assessment may become stricter but not more meaningful. A student may submit a clear, fluent essay but struggle to explain why one source was used, what changed between drafts, or what they can defend as their own claim. The problem is not only AI use. The problem is that the learning transition was invisible. That is the transition gap. This matters because Gen AI is not simply another tool. It is starting to change the architecture of learning itself. Carl et al. Show that generative AI in business education affects four areas: curriculum redesign, teaching practices, assessment integrity, and professional skills. That means Gen AI is not only changing tool use, it is changing learning architecture. A business student can use AI to summarize a case, generate a SWOT analysis, and polish recommendations. But what is the student learning? Diagnosis, comparison, decision making under uncertainty, or selection of the most convicting AI output. These are different capabilities and they need different assessment design. This is why merely integrating AI into existing structures is not enough. Many responses still use the language of integration, integrate AI tools, integrate guidance, integrate prompts, integrate feedback, but integration does not automatically create learning. Efficiency is not capability, feedback is not judgment, fluency is not understanding. Student asks AI to improve a paragraph academically. The paragraph becomes clearer and more formal, but did the student understand why it improved? Can they transfer the learning? Can they notice when the AI version is too generic or not faithful to the argument? If not, the tool improved the text but not necessarily the student's capability. That is why integration is not transition. To see this clearly, we need to return to what academic writing actually does. Academic writing is where students learn to read evidence, hold uncertainty, build an argument, revise thinking, and take intellectual responsibility. This is why EAP is so important. EAP is not only language support, it helps students enter academic practice. What counts as a claim? How do I qualify uncertainty? How do I disagree with a source? How do I write with my own voice without ignoring the discipline? AI can help with the surface, but the deeper work is still human. Academic writing is not just a sentence, it is the thinking behind the sentence. And this is exactly why fluent AI supported writing can be so difficult to assess. AI supported fluency can look like competence. AI or a fluent answer can hide weak source judgment. A polished paragraph can hide shallow understanding. A confident academic tone can hide missing ownership. But this is not an argument against support. Support matters. Access also matters. For many students, the issue is not only whether AI is allowed, but whether they have fair access to language, support, feedback, time, confidence, and educational resources. If AI support becomes unevenly distributed, academic writing may not become more inclusive. It may simply hide inequality behind more fluent text. So the educational test is this. Does support lead back to human capability? Can the student explain, revise, defend, and transfer what they have done? That brings us to the design of human judgment. Human judgment does not survive automatically. It must be designed into task source work, feedback loops, revision, oral defense, reflection, and assessment criteria. It is not enough to say use AI responsibly. We need tasks that ask students to show judgment. Why did you choose the source? What did you reject from the AI suggestion? Where did your argument change after feedback? What can you defend without the tool? In my own studies, I had a positive experience with open book exams. What mattered was not that I had access to material. What mattered was whether I could understand it, connect it, apply it, and justify my reasoning under real conditions. Integrity does not come from pretending students to have no access to resources. It comes from designing tasks where resources still require judgment. This is the point where I would introduce the concept of transition architecture. AI literacy asks, can people use the system? Transition architecture asks, can the institution translate AI use into judgment, agency, integrity, and recognized capability? Its added value is that it gives institutions a design question, not only a policy question. It turns the AI question from what should students be allowed to do into what evidence of judgment, ownership, and capability should our learning design make visible. The movement matters, from AI use to supported performance, to reflection, to human judgment, to intellectual ownership, to recognized capability. This transition cannot be assumed, it has to be designed. The next slide translates this into a movement from learning to judgment, recognition, and participation. In academic writing, the key movement is from learning to judgment to recommendation, and from recognition to participation. The transition must remain traceable, human-centered, and institutionally responsible. Traceable does not mean monitoring every click. It means students can explain the development of their work. Human-centered does not mean anti-technology. It means human judgment remains the educational goal. Institutionally responsible means university cannot place all responsibility on individual students. If students must disclose AI use, then disclosure needs to be clear, teachable, and fair. Without this, transparency can become fear. With good design, transparency can become part of learning. So what would institutions actually need to redesign? First, writing tasks. Instead of only asking for a final say, tasks can include a claim map, a source judgment note, or a short revision commentary. Second, assessment integrity. Instead of relying only on detection, assessment can include ownership, oral defense, and contextual reasoning. Third, feedback loops. Feedback should help students make better next decisions, not only correct the current product. Fourth is teacher agency. Teachers need examples, time, institutional backing, and protected professional judgment. Fifth is students' agency. Students need clarity and room to ask questions before they make mistakes. And sixth is recognition of capability. Institutions need to recognize more than polished output. Taylor and Lacroix argue that universities cannot credibly hold students accountable for GenAI use if their own purpose, pedagogy, assessment assigned, and AI policy are not aligned. For me, this is transition integrity, coherence between purpose, practice, assessment, responsibility, and recognized capability. And now let me return to the student at the beginning. The student who opened an AI tool in front of a blank document. The question is not whether that moment should exist. It already exists. The question is whether universities can design that moment so that the student does not only receive better text, but becomes a more capable thinker. The future of academic writing will not be decided only by whether students use AI. It will be decided by whether universities can turn AI-mediated work into human judgment, intellectual ownership, and recognized capability. AI use becomes educational capability only when the transition from assistance to judgment is designed. Thank you very much.